As the first gentle rays of a cool summer day filtered through the lush green leaves of the lime trees, the small farm seemed to awaken from a long slumber. Today was an exceptionally special day. The day the wooden house, the fruit of Jack and Tien's grueling months of sweat and labor, was finally complete. The rich, clean scent of fresh pine mingled with the crisp countryside air, creating a strangely peaceful atmosphere. From the early hours of the morning, the rhythmic tapping of a hammer echoed from the front porch. Jack had been up since 4. Clad in protective overalls stained with wood dust and leftover paint, his hair a bit disheveled. His eyes shone brightly with pure happiness. Standing high on a bamboo ladder, he meticulously used a screwdriver to secure a wooden nameplate onto the main purlin above the door. It was a piece he had stayed up late carving by hand, featuring the carefully embossed script: To A.M. Banyan, Jack and Amp. To Tien, Peaceful Nest, Jack and Amp. To Tien. Each stroke was painted a deep brown that stood out against the light wood. Down in the yard, To Tien was busy with a bamboo broom, sweeping away the leftover wood scraps and sawdust from the previous afternoon. Every now and then, she looked up, shielding her eyes from the gathering sunlight, and called out, and quote, "Hey Jack, don't climb too high. Shift a little to the right, the sign is slightly tilted. And make sure you hold on tight, Don and Oppos. T-fall." End quote. Hearing her voice, Jack looked down and flashed a radiant smile, his white teeth bright against a face tanned by wind and sun. End quote. Don and Oppos. T-worry Tien, I and Oppos. M perfectly steady. Does this angle look straight to you? I'm driving 2 10-centimeter screws in here. Even a storm won't blow this sign away. End quote. Tu Tien let out a soft, gentle laugh that seemed to brighten the entire yard. Today, she wore a simple jade green aoba ba, her long hair tied neatly in a bun. Looking at the sturdy, handsome wooden house standing before her, she still felt like she was dreaming. Just a few months ago, this plot was nothing but an overgrown wasteland of wild weeds. Now, solid, rounded logs had been raised into a true home. The house featured a spacious main living area, a charming little kitchen opening to the back, and a wide porch enclosed by a wooden railing, where the two planned to place a small table and chairs to sip tea and watch the river drift lazily in the distance each evening. Right then, a sharp, playful chirp rang out. Their loyal pet parrot, a familiar little creature that was always glued to its owners, suddenly flapped its wings and flew down from a nearby dwarf papaya tree. It landed gently right on Tu Tien's shoulder, tilting its tiny head from side to side as if inspecting the beauty of the new house. Tu Tien stroked its smooth feathers affectionately, cooing, and quote, "Be good now, we're having a housewarming party today. Plenty of special guests are coming later, so no mischief." End quote. Watching the scene from his ladder, an indescribable warmth welled up in Jack and Oppos' chest. To him, this house was not merely a physical structure. It was a testament to their love, perseverance, and the dream of a free, self-sufficient life amidst this beautiful nature. He stepped down, brushed his dusty hands against his hips, and walked over to stand beside Tu Tien, admiring their creation together. End quote. "It's finally done, Tien. Thinking back to those rainy days when we had to scramble with tarps to save the wood, and the sleepless nights I spent over the blueprints, it was all worth it." End quote. End quote. "Yes, you worked so hard. Go on inside and wash up. I can hear the sound of Mom and Uncle Dung's motorbike at the top of the hill." End quote. Tu Tien said, pointing toward the dirt path leading into the farm. Sure enough, the familiar rumble of the engine grew louder, rounding the bend of the slope. Uncle Dung's motorbike rolled slowly into the yard. A pair of large bamboo baskets, packed to the brim, was strapped to the back seat. Jack's mother sat behind him, one hand gripping Uncle Dung's jacket and the other holding a large bag filled with various spices and ingredients. The moment the bike came to a halt, Uncle Dung kicked down the kickstand, took off his helmet, and called out in his characteristically booming, cheerful voice, and quote, "Boy, the hill to your place was much easier to ride up today. Jack, you added crushed stone here, didn't you? Well, I've delivered your mother safely." End quote. Jack and Tien rushed out to greet them. Tien helped Jack's mother down, asking tenderly, and quote, "Mom, was the ride exhausting? It's so hot today, and you brought so much." End quote. Jack's mother smiled, her gentle face lined with the traces of time, but her eyes overflowing with joy. She patted Tien's hand. End quote. "I'm not tired at all, dear. Just thinking about your house completion today kept me up all night from excitement. Look, I brought some pre-dressed free-range chicken, along with herbs and sour bamboo shoots, to make hot pot later. And your Uncle Dung was so thoughtful. He hauled a whole basket of fresh limes and ripe papayas up from the lower orchard." End quote. Meanwhile, Uncle Dung and Jack were lifting the 2 bamboo baskets down. Uncle Dung scanned the wooden house from top to bottom, then walked over and gave Jack a heavy, proud slap on the back. End quote. "Not bad, my boy. Excellent. All that time you spent roughing it out on construction sites paid off. The house has a great stance, the wooden structure is solid, and these mortise and tenon joints fit perfectly. That's professional quality. The tiled roof is a smart choice too. It'll keep the place cool and withstand the storms in these parts." End quote. Jack scratched his head, smiling sheepishly. End quote. "Well, it's also thanks to your guidance on the foundation and the drainage system, Uncle Dung. Otherwise, I'd still be fumbling around on my own." End quote. End quote. "We're family, no need for formalities." End quote. Uncle Dung laughed heartily. End quote. "I came up here to freeload today, so you better cook up something delicious to go with my rice wine." End quote. Everyone made their way inside. Crossing the wooden threshold, Jack's mother couldn't help but marvel at the couple and Oppo's craftsmanship, though the living room was sparse. Furnished only with a simple bamboo table and chairs and a few vases of wildflowers arranged by Tien, the wide-open windows caught the full breeze and sunlight, making the space incredibly airy. Losing no time, Jack's mother and Tien immediately set to work preparing the feast. The 2 women entered the cozy kitchen, which Jack had smartly designed with a stone countertop for the gas stove, a spacious sink, and a small window looking right out onto the lush vegetable garden. Tien deftly started a small wood fire in a corner of the porch to simmer the bone broth. The crackling of the firewood mingled with the rising white smoke, bringing a deeply comforting, homely atmosphere to the house. As she sliced the chicken, Jack's mother watched Tien briskly cleaning morning glory and amaranth, fresh greens she had harvested from their garden at dawn. She spoke softly, and quote, "Tien, I can see how deeply Jack loves you. Over the past few months, whenever he called me, he always said he had to finish the house as quickly and beautifully as possible so you Wood and Oppos have to suffer. Seeing the 2 of you of one mind, supporting each other like this, puts my mind completely at ease." End quote. Hearing this, Tien's cheeks flushed a delicate pink. She lowered her head to avoid her mother-in-law and Oppos' gaze, but a happy smile played at the corners of her lips. End quote. "Yes, Jack is incredibly thoughtful, Mom. There were days he was exhausted, and I told him to rest, but he'd keep pushing to finish a door or a beam. I only hope that from now on, our life on this farm will just be peaceful and steady like this. That's all I need to be happy." End quote. End quote. "Yes, that is all one truly needs in life, dear. A grand house means nothing compared to a warm, faithful heart." End quote. Jack's mother nodded, looking at her future daughter-in-law with pure affection. Out in the yard, Uncle Dung and Jack were just as busy, shucking his outer jacket. Uncle Dung helped Jack carry bright yellow marigold pots to line both sides of the walkway leading to the house. Pointing toward an open patch of land by the side of the house, Uncle Dung advised, and quote, "Jack, you've got plenty of open space here. and it's sheltered from the wind. So, when are you planning to officially bring the lady home, huh? Don't keep the girl waiting too long. Your mother is here today. We should lock in a date during dinner." End quote. Faced with the blunt question, Jack's face turned as red as a ripe GAC fruit. He scratched his ear, stammering, end quote. "Well, Tien and I have talked about it. We were thinking of waiting until the farm stabilizes and the next lime harvest brings in a bit of capital before officially bringing it up with you and Mom." End quote. End quote. Oh, nonsense. What matters is the love you share, not the capital. You can spend a lifetime accumulating wealth and it'll never feel like enough. Just get married and work through it together. With your mother and me backing you up, what is there to worry about? End quote. Uncle Dung laughed loudly, clapping Jack on the shoulder in encouragement. His hearty laughter echoed across the farm, prompting the two women in the kitchen to poke their heads out to see what the fun was about. Time flew by, and soon the sun began to dip behind the distant mountains, painting the sky with stunning streaks of pink and purple twilight. The daytime heat quickly melted away, replaced by cool breezes sweeping up from the river. As the dusk gathered, Jack eagerly ran to the plug. With a sharp click, the entire system of warm yellow LED string lights he had wrapped around the railings and under the eaves erupted into light. The magical glow reflected off the honey-colored wood grain, making the house look like a little fairy tale castle nestled in the heart of the wild farm. In the middle of the yard, a large wooden table had been set. It was laden with a lavish spread. A steaming pot of free-range chicken hot pot, fragrant with lemongrass and sour bamboo shoots. A platter of golden poached chicken garnished with lime leaves. Baskets of fresh morning glory, amaranth, and herbs. And, of course, a plate of juicy limes alongside a small jar of rice wine brought by Uncle Dung. The family gathered around the table. Uncle Dung sat at the head, with Jack's mother beside him, while Jack and Tien sat opposite them. The little parrot was given a special perch on a small wooden bar right by the table to join the festivities. Uncle Dung poured wine into 3 small cups, handing one to Jack and keeping one for himself, while Jack's mother and Tien drank a sweet, refreshing passion fruit juice that Tien had prepared. Standing up, Uncle Dung raised his cup and spoke in a clear, resonant voice. End quote. All right, today is an auspicious day, a joyful occasion for Jack and Tien. On behalf of those closest to you, I want to congratulate you both on completing your dream home. May this new house always be filled with laughter. May your farm thrive, your lime trees hang heavy with fruit, your vegetables grow lush, and most importantly, may the two of you always love and cherish each other. Cheers, everyone. End quote. End quote. We invite Mom and Uncle Dung to enjoy dinner with us. End quote. Jack and Tien said in unison, their eyes filled with gratitude. Glasses clinked merrily, blending with their shared laughter. Jack's mother placed a tender piece of chicken into Tien's bowl, saying warmly, end quote, "Eat up, Tien. I feel like you've gotten a bit thin lately. Take care of the farm, but you must look after your health too, dear." End quote. End quote. Thank you, Mom. Please eat plenty too, Mom. Uncle Dung, this broth you made is delicious. The subtle sourness of the bamboo shoots is perfect for this weather, end quote. Tien said, genuinely praising her future mother-in-law and Appo's cooking. The dinner carried on in an immensely cozy and joyous atmosphere. Uncle Dung, ever the storyteller, kept recounting hilarious anecdotes from when Jack first started out in construction. Like the times his miscalculations with materials left Uncle Dung to clean up the mess. Each story had Tien doubling over with laughter, while Jack could only scratch his head and smile sheepishly at being playfully exposed. As the meal wound down, Jack suddenly stood up. Holding his glass, he looked around the table, his expression turning earnest and deeply moved. Clearing his throat, he began to speak. End quote. Mom, Uncle Dung, and Tien, standing under this wooden roof tonight, I truly feel like the luckiest man alive. To have this house today, I want to express my deepest gratitude to my mother, who's always been my emotional anchor, always understanding and supporting even my craziest decisions. I want to thank Uncle Dung, my uncle and my mentor, who never minded the long distance and was always ready to rush up here to help us with every brick and timber and to offer invaluable life advice. End quote. Jack paused for a moment, turning to look directly into Tien's eyes. The warm yellow light illuminated the sincere, tender gaze he held for the girl beside him. End quote. And finally, I want to thank you, Tien. Thank you for choosing to leave the noise of the city behind to come up here and brave the sun and rain with me, building this farm from the ground up. There were days seeing you work so hard at the market to sell vegetables, your hands and feet caked in mud, and my heart just ached for you. This house, I built it for you, for our future. I promise to always do my best to protect you and bring you happiness. End quote. At this point, Jack's voice cracked with emotion. A man normally so resilient, weathered by years on harsh construction sites, now had tears welling in his eyes. Sitting beside him, hearing Jack pour his heart out, Tien's heart completely melted. Unbidden tears of happiness rolled down her flushed cheeks. Unable to find words, she reached out beneath the table and tightly grasped Jack's rough, calloused hand, nodding repeatedly, a silent vow to walk beside him through whatever storms life might bring. Watching them, Jack's mother was equally moved, quickly dabbing away a tear at the corner of her eye. As a mother, there was no greater happiness than seeing her children grow up, love and respect each other, and build a home together with their own honest labor. Seeing the atmosphere grow heavy with emotion, Uncle Dung stood up and brought his hand down on the table with a loud thud to break the solemnity. End quote. That and Appos. S my boy. Well said. That's how a real man acts. Dare to think, dare to do, dare to love, and dare to take responsibility. But what's with the tears? This is a happy day. Are you too trying to make your mother and me cry too? Come on, Jack. Sit down and put some food in your future wife and Appos. Espol, I've made up my mind. At the end of this year, when the limes are ripe and the traders come to buy the harvest, your mother and I will host your wedding right here in this yard. What do you say, Ma? Do you agree with me? End quote. Jack's mother beamed, nodding in hearty agreement. End quote. You're absolutely right, Dung. I was thinking the same thing. Late this year is a perfect time for a wedding. When the time comes, I'll come up here to Rat Bon Chung, slaughter a pig, and we'll celebrate for 3 days and 3 nights. End quote. Tien finally wiped her tears, lowering her head bashfully, while Jack let out a joyful laugh. End quote. Yes, we will follow your arrangement, Mom, Uncle. End quote. The housewarming party resumed with endless laughter and chatter. Perched on its wooden bar, the little parrot mimicked the laughter, letting out cheerful chirps as if it, too, thoroughly approved of the year-end wedding plans. As the night grew deep, the farm fell into a quiet stillness, leaving only the rhythmic chirping of crickets in the grass and the gentle rustle of the wind through the lime trees. Jack and Tien's wooden house continued to glow warmly amidst the dark mountain night. It was more than just a house. It was a beacon of love, of resilience, and the beginning of a beautiful, deeply promising new chapter for 2 genuine souls on the land they cherished so dearly.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình mang tới một video về câu chuyện của Tử Tiên và Jack. Như mọi người cũng đã biết thì cái căn nhà hiện tại Tử Tiên và Jack đang ở thì đã bán cho bố Phượng, là bố chồng cũ của Tử Tiên, do ông đã dùng hết số tiền mà ông bán nhà ở dưới quê và tiền tích góp dưỡng già để đưa cho Jack để xử lý khủng hoảng công ty, thì Jack đã nhượng lại căn nhà đấy cho ông. Và còn miếng đất ở bên cạnh, ở chỗ căn nhà đấy thì anh dựng lên một căn nhà gỗ để cho anh và Tử Tiên ở cũng như đón mẹ Lợi. về ở, nhưng mà mẹ Lợi thì hiện tại đang muốn ở với bác Dũng. Còn căn nhà bên cạnh cũng tiện là ở gần bố Phượng để chăm sóc. Thì căn nhà sau nhiều quá trình cố gắng hoàn thành cũng như công sức của tự Tiên và Jack vun đắp thì hôm nay cũng đã hoàn thành, và một bữa tiệc nhỏ đã được tổ chức. Mọi người hãy để lại bình luận chúc mừng cho tự Tiên và Jack, cũng như là đồng hành với họ trên con đường tiếp theo, cũng như là hành trình tình yêu sắp tới trên con đường mới này và trong căn nhà mới này nhé. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem video, hẹn gặp lại ở video sau.